Hello and welcome in everyone out in the universe. Today is Wednesday. It is the 13th. The lucky number 13th is one of my numbers. I have several aspects in my natal chart that has the number 13th. So this is the perfect day to go over exactly why I'm here on this planet. And maybe Matthew Mariah as well, as some of you is your own journey too. Tonight we have something really exciting to go over. It's called the sleeping phoenix phenomenon, and it's a 400-year cycle. And we're going to go over what that will entail, and also how Capricorn and Cancer are involved in that process. It had to do with something that I was watching with the Leo King, like few days ago or so. And he brought up the sleeping phoenix. And he brought up how Capricorn, when Pluto goes from Capricorn into Aquarius all the way into Cancer, that the earth is literally in death process. And we are earthlings, so we are a part of that death process. And this isn't just esoterically, or it's exoterically as well. That means what is hidden, the occult wisdom in that, and what is spiritual and what is material. So tonight we're going to go into some really intense stuff. So this isn't going to be for the lighthearted people out in the world, because this is reality, and our reality is changing really quick. In 2027, there was going to be this shift, as we all know, but most astrologers, and I don't usually like to talk shit about other astrologers. However, I'm not talking shit about them. It's just that they are pumping up that the new world's going to be amazing. Well, yeah, maybe eventually, but for the next 100 to 200 years, especially 167 years, because that's what it takes for Pluto to move from Capricorn all the way into Cancer. And we are moving out of the planning cycle of human design, and moving into the sleeping phoenix, which is manifesting generators. And this is when we're going to be so busy trying to survive, that we don't have time for normal, like, that whole, like, I just want to have fun. Yeah, you better have had that fun and you better be prepared because 2027, I'm not trying to scare anybody. This is just what reality is and what has happened in the past. So we're going to go over this history because there's going to be some history, there's going to be some astrology, a little bit about planets, and what the new root race that is coming, that is going to be called Brazil. And we are actually right at the preface of that beginning of that root race. And that has to do with this sleeping phoenix. So welcome in, everyone. I'm super excited. My name is Nova. I'm with Matthew Mariah. We get together each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Check your clocks. We might go for an hour and a half, maybe a little longer, but we are going to definitely have a part 2. Who knows how many parts to this, because this is going to be a very intensive workshop for all of you. And all of the podcasts we have done up to this point have shown you a way to prepare for what's coming. We've been talking about this, and here it is. So welcome in. Hey guys, how's it going?
Bonjour. Happy hump day.
Bonjour.
Happy Wednesday.
Coming back into that
happy.
wave. It has been really weird wind all day in Colorado. Like, it's been nice, bro. Like, what is that? It's like
Same here.
very tornadoey. And then everybody I've talked to around the country, like, it's windy as shit. So I don't know where you're at, all the listeners, if it's windy where you're at. There's definitely some wind going on, and they call the wind Mariah. But look at, like, there's definitely changes in the weather patterns for sure. So they may be like, we're right when they said the climate was changing, because the climate has changed, but we moved on to something completely different, right? Like, we got to save our souls. We have to survive here now and evolve.
Enough with Trump. Enough with Epstein. There's something bigger coming, and those guys are going to disappear and dissolve.
Crap. We need to, like, these are all warnings, and all these books and all these symbols, right? These are warnings, and it's happening. What they were trying to tell us, some of it's happening now.
Yeah. And you have to be able to integrate.
People are beginning to wake up to that.
Brave.
It's getting to that point where everybody is starting to say, okay, something is going on here, and it's different than it has been in the past from this lifetime's perspective. But in the whole scheme of things, there are patterns that repeat, and that's what we're going to get into today, because you can avoid the shittiest of the shitty situations if you can be in the right place at the right time, instead of just sitting there looking at the tidal wave coming straight at you. Like, don't live in a floodplain. Don't live in a place.
Or with your head in your phone with a mask on. Come on, guys. Look up. Look up.
Learn to build a Faraday cage.
Yeah, well, this is going to be interesting because we're talking about a new race of people and beings being born in 2027. It's already been known that there are people that are being born with blue crystal eyes that have eyesight way more powerful and can see a lot more than they ever have before. And a lot of them are actually in Africa, believe it or not. These crystal blue eyes. And then we have the autistic people, and this was actually probably starting in the 70s, where people like myself, they didn't know what to do with me. I took this special test. I was like the second most intelligent child in the United States. And so what they did is they suppressed me and called me lazy because I didn't fit into their Rothschild standard.
The opposite of what you were.
That is what's going to be 100% opposite. And you three, I know, or us three as a unit, I know that we are on that top as well.
Right.
That we were, yes. we were pushed aside, and children branded as different and misunderstood, and in their uniqueness.
Difficult.
And I know that a lot of people that are anarchists that are listening to our show right now feel
Know what
that
we're talking
same
about?
exact
Yeah.
thing. You know what we're
Oh,
talking
and
about.
it was like
So
so many people were medicated and stuff. It was like, all right, well, you've got this ADHD, and it's like everybody has ADHD, everybody's anxious,
yeah, a bunch
everybody,
of bullshit.
So it's, and they're like, here, we're gonna just dumb down your mind with a bunch of pharmaceuticals before you even hit puberty, and then all of a sudden you're
Yep.
completely
Yeah, we're
suppressed. You're
Birth
experimental.
control.
We
Sorry.
are for them
You're
to
right.
experiment on. We are
100%.
their creation. They experiment on us all the time, wouldn't you? If you're a mad scientist.
See
Well,
what
what's
what
interesting
the
is
guinea
that
pigs
no
get up
matter
to
what,
today.
well, no matter what, the mutation's coming, and they've tried to suppress it and name it and shame it and push you out of society. And well, we're on to their fucking game. And that's why this is not a fear-based podcast. We are here saying we're on to your fucking bullshit, and we're not buying it. But I know that what game you're going to play. I know what your cards are going to be. And so I'm going to be ready for that. So what's coming though is this emotional tone now of a frequency that has never been on this planet before, but you can see it through people that are autistic, people like myself, where I might seem a little unemotional, except for when I get passionate. But it's not really emotion. I'm very clear. I used to get like super angry and my whole entire body would shake and whatever. But I've worked through that rage that was inherited through the lineage that I was in, and transformed that. So now I look, and I just kind of I look at everybody else going, wow, I used to be that. And I'm not emotional anymore. And I've removed that. And that's what is coming, is this where there's this emotional distance and social isolation. So it's just not cell phones and Facebook. It's an actual, getting prepared for us to not have these mood swings, and being popped pills, like you were just talking about, Matthew, based on, because a lot of that shit makes you suicidal and have mood swings. So this is what the future is going to be echoing, is
And
this
dependency
emotional
too.
authority. It's going to fade. Yeah, 100%. So this is going to fade, and it's not going to happen overnight. This is going to, this is a 400-year span, or roughly about a 400-year span. So we're going to go into like how, even the joy of food. And what have we been saying about food for a while, you guys? And intimacy, and how we've all been kind of separated and had to learn how to love ourselves, right? What have we been talking about?
No, we've been covering
Anyone?
the degradation of that and how it's been
There we go.
just like dissolving over a period of time based on our culture and based on what we've been taught. And so we've been trying to flip the script on that and actually look inward rather than outward when we're talking about these subjects, because that's where the answer generally is, instead of out and about. It's inside of ourselves. So it's getting us to look around and look inside for the answers.
Well, okay, so something like food. I have been noticing this very specific point, is that we have to eat something that was living in order for us to keep living. So we are operating on, we have to, like, we're just like the rest of the animals. We have to kill something in order to eat it, whether it be a plant, whether it be a bean, whether it be air. There has to be we kill. We have to take life from something else in order to prolong our life. So this is a way of life that we can transform out of, I think, and not like ticks and make everybody allergic to eating meat. But as we're supposed to evolve into these higher dimensions, the physical food, it weighs you down, right? It weighs you down. It keeps you in those lower chakras. And
Mhm.
but the whole
Yeah, just like I was talking about my fasting.
kill to eat. You have to kill to live. That is that tree
Yeah,
of flower
true.
of
It doesn't
life.
matter if it's a vegetable.
Yeah, a flower, anything.
Still,
You're a tree. You're killing it. And
yeah,
plants are here for us to take in, but we're just barely
right.
about these animals. And according to the gods and these fucked like wannabe gods, and demons, but
Yes.
we are killing every time we're eating something. So think about that. And
And
so love
naturally,
out of it.
we don't need to do that, right? We don't need to kill. We can use the essence, and by, being in the field of that frequency of that plant to heal ourselves or to feed ourselves, to breathe, to also use the sun, as we've talked about before. Go ahead, Mariah. It looks like you have something to say into
There's
that.
really a really important aspect here that we have to remember though, because like beings like the reptilians and stuff, right? They are feeding, or
Mhm.
demonic beings, they feed off our loosh. So you got to be careful that
Right.
that's what we're doing. We're not trying to do
Yes.
that. But again,
Doing
they're
the same
taking
thing to
energy.
other things.
They're taking living energy, vitality from something else. They're doing the same thing, only it's like through fear or emotion or lust or all the 7 sins, right? So that's why they love to put us in a movie theater and gather it, I love it. And
Well,
that's
it's
why
also a
comedy
part of the
gets shut
construct
down.
too. It's and it's how this world was maybe not built, but it's the phase that we're in right now. So it's learning to be in harmony with that phase instead of being resistant or over aggressive with it. It's knowing that,
Right.
okay, well, if we have to
Accepting.
kill to exist, I mean, there's a certain level of acceptance that has to come into that to even exist. Because I mean, yes, you can become a breatharian, but I mean, that's going to take some work and some time. Like you can't just totally stop and then all of a sudden never kill again,
Right.
never eat a plant again, never have a piece of meat. I mean, it's like you got to work your way to those steps, and this is a playing field for that. So we're here to evolve, and we can do that over time.
Well, and right, so
Yeah.
with ethically thinking about everything you're eating, the meat you're eating, like, I'm like, there's elk sausage, like, oh, I'll get that, but I don't want any of this pork or,
Right. Like the stuff
chewy,
that's, multi-slaughtered and, who knows if it's even,
human.
animal,
It could be human meat at
like
this point. If
beef.
it's
I
ground
mean, it
up,
could
it
be
could be
human,
whatever. It could be whatever.
at this point. Right.
And so if we're
So the whole point of this is like,
we can go down a rabbit hole now.
embracing. Yeah, because I want to kind of move forward. We can go on to this a little bit more as we go along into the podcast. But we need to start embracing empathy and our connection and finding the beauty in these moments, and the strength of understanding what the future is going to bring us, and invite us to redefine what it means to truly to be alive and to live in this reality. And so it takes time, and we're going to be, I'm sure you guys have heard of this, but they're going to be called raves. That's one of the, it's going to take time for them to mutate, but they are going to be starting to be born in 2027. And there's these different stages of generation, that some will be born in 2050. So there's going to be this first generation, just like we know about the generations, how there's 4 different cycles of different races or just people. So it's the same thing with these raves. There's going to be, at the same time they're going to be mutating. They'll still be in humans, but that there's just going to be this emotional certainties where this wave can be stopped, but also where people have this emotional certainty where in addition to that flow or feeling, where the authority is going to cease to matter. And so and it's actually going to be a real stop of the wave. And you can already see it with autism, where they don't really have these ability to have emotion. And so they have to kind of be, trained or, to respond, because the rest of humans are like, what the fuck is wrong with you? They're not really accepting of these people.
Well, they're coming
And
from
they get
somewhere else.
offended. So it's
They're coming from somewhere
right.
another
So
part of the galaxy. So they're coming from a
Right.
one of the different planetary dimensions, right? So they might be advanced in so many other ways. Yeah, like and that's why. It's not because they're lacking
Yeah.
anything, but they're coming from somewhere else where they're
Nope.
bringing something that this planet needs. And we already have all the other shit. It's not,
And it's us that is lacking the empathy to understand that, you know what? It's actually kind of nice not to have emotions, because it doesn't mean you're a sociopath. It just means that you're not controlled by the elemental demons and angels any longer. And they have that frequency. Let's go ahead and go into the next slide. Mariah, she picked the phoenix, and that's what's behind the skull. But because it's sleeping and resting, I thought of Pompeii and the people that were, resting and sleeping when this fire burned them. And it reminded me of the phoenix when it goes into its sleeping state. It doesn't, burn. It burns and then it turns to ash, just like the Harry Potter. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And then it rises from the ashes. And I saw this one with a cross on it with ash in it, because this is going to be a cycle of death. Now that Pluto has passed through Capricorn, it started with Capricorn and it's moved into Aquarius, there's going to be more cycles of death. And that is in dogmas, in governance. So dogmas would be your religious leaders, your religious churches, and you're already seeing churches being closed up. Like there's that one church in Denver, Colorado, and it's called the church, and now it's a club. Okay, and people go dancing to raves and they do acid and mushrooms and stuff.
I dreamt of that place before I moved to Denver, and it was right across the street from my art institute. Very interesting.
Isn't it like a Presbyterian? It's one of those rock.
Well, and the Presbyterian is all part of the 80s Pluto stuff. Is that
yeah, Matthew and I went there a few years ago.
Oh yeah, and you can buy stuff. You can actually buy a church. They're like, I remember doing some cross country road trips and seeing them for sale. $200,000 for a full like stone church out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's becoming like.
But that's not the only thing, too. I mean, there's other things that are closing down as well. Like, there's a ton of schools that have been closing down in different places, like elementary schools, like funding's getting cut, and so and I wanted to touch on the Phoenix a little bit because, the Phoenix doesn't rise until after the destruction, right? So it's like the Phoenix rises after the fire comes out, and so that's kind of like this would be the prelude to that cycle, because right now there's nothing there. The buildings or the society is taped together with duct tape, and it's like but after that collapse, that's when it has the chance to break free. And so it's interesting we talk about generations, right? Because we're talking about these different kids that are going to get born. And I remember all this happening with like the indigo kids and the crystal children and all that. And there was a couple waves of that back in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, and now we're in the 2020s, right? So we've gone through half of Carl Strauss's generational shift, right? We've gone through 40 of those years. Now we're going through the other 40 of those. We're on the other side of the pendulum of that, which will be interesting because you've got these high vibe souls coming down into a shit show. And so it's like, okay, they have to be very well trained, or at least a little adept as a soul, because it's not going to be the easiest places to grow up. So they've got to be advanced, and they've got to probably pass some kind of bar or threshold, I'd imagine, before you incarnated. So that way you don't just get stuck in the cycle, because I'm sure that's how a lot of souls have got stuck on Earth, is they're like, I'm an angel, I'm going in, I'm going to go fix Earth. And then they get stuck because they forget who they are.
Yeah, they forget who they are, like a dragon does, and they, this is the age to where you gain your power as an individual. This is not about the next 20 years or so, with Pluto and Aquarius. This is not about coming together in groups. And a lot of people think that, because that's what, that house in the zodiac is about, is groups. In that, and this is what's going to be as far as the data centers, the surveillance, teams, all this crazy shit that that they're building. That is where they're going to start putting you as a collective, as a group, that they're going to say you can't do this and that and this if you don't do that, if you don't pay your bills, if you don't do this, if you don't if you don't like somebody, or if you're mean to them, or even if you just like talk shit about the government, that kind of stuff. That's going to be more about what's going to happen for the age of Aquarius with Pluto. But so what that's going to do is it's going to push us as individuals to start acting on our own autonomy and our own power, directed by spirit, which actually serves the humanity gate 34 in human design. And so it's going to also have this dispensation of fertility agents, because making more ensures the future. But fertility is going to be different, because during this 167-year span, during this Capricorn to Cancer, there's going to be a decline in fertility. So there might be different ways to actually bring in fertility. And I wanted to bring this up because this is that need for intimacy and security. And in the Palladian Agenda book, I was talking to Mariah about this right before, and I said to her, I remember there's a quote in here where Lucifer, or no, excuse me, Anu, from the god of the Anunnaki, was saying, well, fuck, we kind of accidentally made it so that women birthed. And I don't know if I found the exact quote, but I did find one here where it says that in the past, your 3D worlds have ended by fire, flood, and quakes. Okay, so this is these past times between Capricorn and Cancer, when Pluto is passing through these houses and zodiac signs. So this time you're on the verge of being smothered in bodies. There is still time to rebalance your numbers, and a first step will help. I, Anu, will do an intervention on the Pope. I hereby end the papal infability, the Nebrian imprimatur. To prevent further difficulty in the future, the Pope, who badly needs a long recovery program, will be coming with his next time will leave Earth. He can be the new Anu, so I can retire. And this is why the Pope has been practicing his traveling in languages. Sorry. Yeah. And so that I'm sure that you're laughing, but it's time for the end of women being used as vessels.
Oh no, I'm not laughing. That's probably
Sorry.
why your throat is why you're coughing, is because your throat chakra, right? That's representing like throat chakra is being
It's true. It's been blocked, and women have been blocked
for fucking ever, even now.
Yes.
My mom, if any of you still have living mothers, they probably didn't have that. They didn't have that much of a voice in comparison to what we do now. We could say almost fucking anything. We're living the golden age of kind of say whatever the fuck you want, and you're not going to get strung up by a tree. You're not going to get burned to death. Criticized.
Well, now you're gonna just like not be able to get food and supplies, so
they're
you're gonna have
bringing
to
it
figure
back.
out how to do this on your own.
Well, she's a witch.
But it also
Or you get
says,
shadow banned on YouTube.
So this is like
I do
that.
want to read this part. Hopefully, it'll come in.
Yeah, I just want to give you the real.
I do want to.
Why?
I apologize about that. So I do want to read the rest of this is the kind of the beginning of it. It says, if for now it is important for your survival, I now see that these experiences have set deep birthing triggers that result in chaotic breeding. And that's what's been happening on the planet. During this last cycle since 0 point, all temples that built their traditions on the patriarchs of the Hebrew Bible are infected with this chaos, especially the Vatican. This infection is God blindness. Have not most of you wondered why the church denies women sovereignty in their bodies? Why are your goddesses only useful for birthing vessels? I will tell you. On Nibiru, for thousands of years, gestation was accomplished with fertile eggs that we put in receptacles, holy grails. After gathering them during the sacred sexual ceremonies and temples on earth, to us, each goddess is an individual receptacle for birthing, and each fertilized egg that was gathered is precious to us. Your women are fertile, and sex is wonderful with them. We have used you in such a powerful way without your total agreement that deep inside you believe you do not control your own fertility, your most basic right. You do not take responsibility for your birthing. Holy fuck. So think about this.
Like cows, poor cows.
Before women birthed, okay, they actually did it completely different. Women did not have to go through the birthing process, which is torture. It's torture. It's horrible.
Oh, they're like, hey, you know what? Bam, these are sorcerers that have done this to us.
Right. 100%. And wasn't it King Henry the 8th or 5th that made it so that women had to lay on their backs while he like ate a leg of chicken or something like that? And you know, it was like a totally unnatural process where women, would squat before. So this whole like torturous thing that they do in hospitals is also, the Knights of the Hospitaller cult, to also use women as these vessels. So just to kind of like, some major bullshit when it comes to that time is over. And so we might be having different experiences with birth. You guys know the night, the Maiden's Tale. Is that what it's called?
Oh, before we move, I want to touch on that. I think from what I recall, before we were in male-female bodies, when we existed in more of like a hermaphrodite body, the way that a baby was made was with intent and with love, and it was a frequency rather than sex. It was completely a different way of reproduction, which I'm still trying to gather what the details of that would mean. Who gets pregnant? Is there a pregnancy? Like, what does that actually mean? But it was a completely different method before we were converted to male-female. And so it must have been a duality split in terms of our level of consciousness and society as a whole. But if it could be done, maybe that's where we're heading after we get through this dark cycle. It'd probably be an interesting
because
evolution.
when we were hermaphrodites, we actually just birthed ourselves, and it wasn't like the way it's done today, and Mariah had made a good point earlier when I was talking to her today, that women die at childbirth because there are all these different bloodlines of different races on this planet.
Positive blood. We are
and they are not meant to have babies. So anyway, so that is interesting.
Yeah,
so
like what a way to go. Like your baby's blood ends up attacking you, like your own child. They're like, they end up like, it's a pretty gnarly process.
Yeah, my mother and I had
they
this
don't
happen.
tell the public this for a reason. They hide it. Oh, these
well, they actually used to have to get a before you got a marriage license, you'd have to go get a blood test just for this reason, and then they stopped doing that.
And it'd be on your birth certificate. All cattle.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So this is going to be interesting. So this whole fertility thing for the next 167 years, it's going to be different. We got the Handmaid's Tale, where there's going to be surrogate mothers, because the in history it shows that fertility I'll go over that as we go along, that it declines for 167 years. And so this has to do with this part of like the human design with Pluto. And so during this sleeping phoenix, there's going to be this contemplation also where there's this, where we're constantly absorbed with being busy and getting things done and creating while we're waiting for the coming mutation to happen. Because we're going to be so fucking busy, we're not going to have time to go out to eat to dinner. We're going to have to figure out how to grow our own food. We're going to have to figure out how to become machinist once again. And I can tell you this much: most of the world right now is going to panic because they don't know, they're not going to know what to do. All right. Um, so there's going to be this abundance, but until 2027, that abundance is over. Okay. And so we need to start seeking access to spirit through love and bonding with one another. And that doesn't just mean sexually, because sexuality is actually going to decline. And that is going to be one of the reasons why fertility is not going to be there, because these new beings are not going to have that emotional bonding that the rest of us had with the planning human design. So there's this quest for transformation of death and rebirth during this time, the entire time, with Pluto just going through Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Gemini, and Cancer. And this whole tribal collective structure from the previous cross that I was talking about, this planning from 1615 to 2027, it's going to be this new era that is defined as by individual empowerment within yourself, whether you're going to be self-sufficient. Can you make your own cheese? Can you make your own butter? Do you even know how to milk a cow? Can you catch a cow? Can you make a bow and arrow? Can you breathe and
What's so
meditate
funny
and
is that
live
you
off
saying
of...
that reminds me of in first grade, we actually got taught that. And that was like one of the few life skills. I didn't think about it until since first grade. But yeah, we got taught how
making
to milk
butter.
a cow. Yeah, that's a good one. How to churn.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I've
That's
done
so
all
cool.
that stuff,
Yeah.
but I'm a freak because I
We
was
grew up
lot of
on a
people
farm.
haven't.
but with 4-H
Yeah,
and
she totally did.
FA, right? But even Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, if they did it right, that's what they're trying to do. It's kind of all Mason based, maybe like the Scouts, not the 4-H as much. I don't know, just Clover. But they taught.
It's meant to make successive.
Well, it taught a lot of good skills that are lost anymore, that never got taught. Even during the days like when people still played video games, we need to go back to that, because one, like our, think of our generations, right? Like they all change, but if you're Generation X, millennium, our parents might have been gone a lot, and we kind of,
Mm-hmm.
we
had to
kind of
learn
figured
how to
that shit out.
survive.
Oh my God, right? We're
Yeah,
still
we
alive.
did.
Yeah.
All the barbed wire scars I have from riding my bike, like I fell off horses at like age 3. I'm still going, but I'm also a freak. But there's something, society has completely lost it, of course, and I'm sure the younger generations are dying for that shit. Like, this is
Yes,
what they've
and
been.
you can
They have
tell
been.
that they're wanting it. And that's
They've
why
been
people are depressed and anxiety filled,
in
because
school
they are
now
naturally
is
going, where's
AI
my
or on
humanity?
a computer, and they're always on a phone. And oh my God, I can't even imagine. We had magazines and we had body images. I can't even imagine. They're probably already getting plastic surgery and Botox, and they're 12,
Yeah, and all that stuff is going to be so
it has
not
to
even
go away.
important. It never has been.
It's
And
got to
so
go
it's
away.
going to
And
be
it
a
is.
part of the Sleeping Phoenix Cross, is where there's actually the Sleeping Cross consists of the number 55 gate, 34, 59, and 20. And so these qualities are these different energies that we're experiencing right now, actually in this movement. And we're going to move away from the nature of, completely of nature of creating and maintaining communities, from basic transitions based on our trust to a stranger. Like, you have to go back to handshakes, right? There aren't going to be contracts and paperwork like there used to be. We have to start going back and start trusting each other. And we've talked about this. Mariah was just saying earlier today. They have us going against each other because they don't want us to. They know what's coming. I hate saying they because it's our consciousness. This whole fucking data center shit.
They them.
That is us. That is us. That is us wanting to be in control of everything, right? That's our consciousness collectively. We're control freaks. And so that's why these data centers are coming up. It's not because they are them or them, blah, blah, blah. It's because our consciousness is like, I want to be in control of everything and blah, 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 blah. And so now, okay, well, now you're going to have this addiction, from your material well-being and your relationships is going to change, and your whole duty to family, which means slavery, and to other people, that's all going to disappear. And so your main voice and the main voice of the planet, each person is going to be actually saying, I'm too fucking busy with myself and my survival. That's what this next 400 years are going to be about. Let's go ahead and continue with our new slide. And if you guys want to say something about that, go right ahead. We're just going to move forward. I just want to say you're listening to Poppies for a Project. We get together each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. We've been going for like the last 40 minutes. We're going to probably go for maybe another hour, give or take. So this is also a part of this sleeping phoenix is dependency. Okay. So our dependency is so bad. Like we are so codependent because a lot of us are codependent because we don't want to be responsible. We want to be slaves, right? So we're going to try to fix you instead of fixing myself. Well, that's what this shadow, if you guys, the shadow work, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. But that's what your shadow work should have been doing this whole entire time, going, I'm no longer going to be codependent, and I don't need to be dependent on what? The banking system, because we're completely dependent on them. We're dependent on the churches to tell us, what God is about and how I should pray and, if I'm forgiven. No, you have to start learning how to forgive yourself and know that God is within you. And also, dependency on therapy. Like a lot of the therapists are bullshit anyways. Like, you're just going there to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and jab, 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 jab. And you're just repeating, you're never really getting anywhere. When you should have been learning astrology, geometry, psychology, and, other basic skills to survive. Okay. So, all of the big welfare farms are going to disappear. The hospitals are going to disappear. The medications are going to disappear. And we as individuals in cases we're going to start to have to start trusting each other and deserve respect for what we've gone through, and that that I actually need to have some skills other than a freaking AI system. Otherwise, you're going to become that slave. You're going to stay in that part, and you're not going to, you're going to do whatever it takes, because this is what usually happens. People will suck dick when the shit goes down. And I'm sorry, but there's not that much good dick out there that you should probably not be sucking. All right? So fuck all that. We don't want to go back to prostitution. We don't, to earn a living wage, to not starve, to do everything that we should be able to do on this planet, to be free. So all of this, money and lending, these signboards and online reports, and manage your money and deposit your accounts. Money, money, money. Where's your car going to be? Where's the ATM? How do we buy these household appliances, and who's going to fix it? And can I get it replaced? That shit's going to disappear. We're going to have to go back to service centers. When I was a
Well,
kid,
believe it
if
or not,
you're
there's actually a lot of people that are out there and they're trying to sustainably preserve a lot of the machinery and mechanics, like hand mechanics, that are to rebuild after a total shutdown, because it only takes about 40 to 50 different machines to rebuild and create society again from scratch. And I'll have to post a link, but there's a guy that I found recently, and he patented and created the replicas of these different machines, you know, like a tiller or like an automated shoveler, and like different, you know, the 45 or 50 different machines, and he patented them himself, and he gave them out for free. He's like, here you go, world, and we can all download them. And I will find that link and put it in our little
and
chat
that's actually
here.
really important. You know, is that
Totally,
these
because you know
inventors and
that
people should be
being
giving out the stuff for
in
free.
with those people, and that's the kind of person you want in your backyard. That's who you want to be your neighbor, and you want to be friends with, and be like, okay, well, I'm a doctor, or I can, you know, fix up your house, or I can, you know, marry in, or whatever it is. You know, you can collaborate with these people, because there's all these nodes of ingenuity that will be okay if they're, you know, when shit hits the fan. It's like, just because there's a global system falling down doesn't mean humanity's going back to the Stone Age. It just means that some people will be slaves to an AI system and other people will be independent. And you want to probably be independent. At least I'd prefer that. And I think you guys would too. And so it's being prepared and mindful, and having the technology backed up and saved. And so that way, you know, if you need the plans for a wheelbarrow so you can get the dirt from one side of the yard to the other for your garden, you know, you got them there and available, instead of being like, how do I make a wheelbarrow? You know, and because some of these necessary things are pretty easy to make.
There's going
just having
to be
plans.
machinery today that is going to be available to us to where we won't have to do that. And so we're going to be more innovative in those aspects where we don't necessarily always have to use a wheelbarrow, but you might not have access to gasoline in your truck to go to get those parts. Okay.
Absolutely. No gasoline,
So
no wheelbarrow, but a farm robot.
you're not going to be able to go anywhere. So you're going to have to figure out, like, going to a junkyard and fabricating your own freaking stuff.
Welcome to my childhood.
You know,
that's fun.
this is the way it is already in other countries. America is the spoiled brat. Okay, we've had access to everything, but now that is gone. Okay, it's going to be leaving next year. That doesn't mean that we're going to be totally screwed, but you know, the people that are going to be able to afford these new cars that are going to be running off of, like, you know, hydrogen or whatever, good luck. You're on affording those, because they're the wealth, or you know, the wealthy are taking all the wealth. And so, you know, and they realize this, and this is why they're replacing people with machines to make their own stuff for them. Okay, and there'll be a very few people that will have jobs.
What's funny about currency, though, is that currency is really only a belief system. Like, an example is back in like this, I think it was the late 1600s or 1700s, and you know, the Columbus had just gotten to America, and the French were close on his ass with trying to get, you know, discovered land. And so they figured, okay, well, there's all these natives and they're awful and they're trying to kill us, and so maybe we can barter with them and we can trade. And so the French sail all the way over to Central America, and they bring their most valuable items with them, like mirrors, because you know they love their beauty, and they've got coins and gold and riches and things that Europeans find valuable. And they get over there and they show these things to the natives, and what happens? They get killed. They don't even care. They don't give a shit that they've got gold or mirrors or pretty perfumes. They're like, their sense of value and wealth is completely different. And I think as the wealthy suck up all of the dollars, there's going to be new currency that's formed. I mean, like Bitcoin's an example, but there'll be actual hard currency, like items like a gallon of whiskey or a gallon of gasoline or a cow. You know, those things are going to have higher values than the dollar, and they'll be bartered and traded. And that shift in currency will change. And all of a sudden, a lot of these independent societies are going to say to whoever, the Musks out there, they're going to say, we don't want your dollars. They're not worth anything around here. What am I going to do with your worthless piece of paper? You need $100,000 to buy a piece of gum. What's the point of that? Like, you know, I think currency will shift. And so if you're stuck in the automated system, you'll have those social credit points or whatever, and you better not cross a jaywalk at the wrong time, or because otherwise your facial recognition will be ding your points and you won't be able to get a loan, right? It'll be that versus, okay, well, I can trade some apples for some oranges. So two very different systems. And so that's the thing we got to start thinking about. Which of those paths are we going to try to go down?
Well, most people need to have property to order to grow those fucking oranges, unless we start building cities where there's just food, because food should be free. I'm sorry. The grocery stores need to be closed the fuck down. There should be free food when you walk out into the public on the side of the street, like a head of lettuce, and there actually is free food. You just don't know that it's actual food. Like where I live, I got purple dead nettle. I have miner's lettuce. I have lamb's tail.
No,
I have so much food just in my yard. And I don't even have to grow it. It does it naturally.
So most of the trees that are planted, they're male trees. No offense to males in that, but they don't produce the fruit, right?
Nope.
And like that type of like, and just community gardens, but also get to know each other, and why not help each other grow food? Because it's been taken.
You can go out and get stinging nettle. You can go out and get that. I don't remember there's so much food. Like you just walk out and we don't even know. But people are like, if these waves are going to turn into like where they're just going to be vegetarian, you can literally just eat whatever. Like I had a plant that I didn't know in my actually several of them, but there was a new one that has been there that I didn't know I could eat, and it's actually sweet, and it was like a delicatessen in Europe for a very long time, and I was like, hell yeah! I started picking it and started putting it in my salads and my soups. So anyways, so that's just kind of like a part of it. But let's continue with what with the slides, because what we're looking at is that these social institutions are going to be gone. Like so you can already start to see it that people are their dependency on systems are starting to be taken away. And so because the credit of trust and people around will fall. It will fall pretty sharply. And these transactions of organizations of food delivery to large cities, they're going to be terminated. It's not going to be around. It's going to be very difficult to get food. Because because of the shortages of oil and all this other crazy crap. And this is just, okay, you got to remember, this is just between Capricorn and Aquarius. What I found was that the wars and all the famines that happen in the past, when Pluto was in Capricorn and in Aquarius, and then, goes all the way through Cancer, that all these things happen at the edges of like of like in between a transition of a zodiac. So you have essential goods, where there's going to be economic inflation. So there was the collapse in the USSR. That wasn't too long ago, and there were thousands of enterprises that were left without necessary fuel, raw materials, and because the fuel was produced on in territory neighbors, formerly fraternal and very sovereign, they started to become concerned about survival. And this can be assumed that this transition in 2027 is going to actually copycat this disproportionately large on a large planetary scale. Because think about what just happened with the pandemic. Okay, so we have like just overnight, anyone who thinks that there's this broad category in this big frame is going to resonate. Well, pretty much it's already happening now. Okay, it's happening now, and we're just not seeing it to the extent. We're seeing it in our wallets, our pockets, that because the fuel costs are going up and food costs are going up. That's just the beginning.
Oh, and
Ready to
what's
move on when you
happening?
guys are ready.
What's interesting, I love how you had the plumbers here. Of course, I love Super Mario Brothers and how they always come into effect. The plumbers clean up everything, right? But I just wanted to point out, like, really good job on that, because if we do not like go back to the basics, right? And this is everybody's like, and that's what I think COVID itself was like. If you were doing it correctly, most people are like, oh, I learned a skill. Like I was like under the thumb of, the government. I had to be good. I wanted to go all out and party, but I had already done that. So I'm like, all right, let me invest in myself. And so again, like, this is a chance to go all out. Wow God. Okay, we are experiencing God in all of ourselves. Wow him. See what you can fucking do with this, with all this energy. Are we gonna like crawl underneath a rock? Are we gonna cry? Are we gonna freak out? Are we gonna kill our neighbors? Like, or what are you gonna do with this Renaissance type of energy? Wow yourself and the universe with like this like innovative time where you can learn all these skills. And do you know how many it's hard? I can't even get anybody to help me with my house. So skills like this, like, priceless. Anyway, that's all I want to say about that.
No, I love it. And the next slide,
Yeah,
it just
and
kind
I
of
think it
shows
kind of
you.
goes back
Go ahead.
to what you said earlier, that there's this process of self-liberation that comes from it, and that's going to be another important aspect, is that liberation aspect, because if you're locked into a system that's not going to take care of you, that's when you're going to get bound and enslaved to that system. So that self-liberation is really, really important. And I also wanted to take a moment as well, speaking of self-liberation, my partner, she wrote a book called Spirit Lines, and she's going to be releasing it next week. And it actually touches on self-liberation. And if anybody's interested, this is the book, and it's going to be releasing on Amazon coming here very soon. And I'm going to put another link in the description for you guys if you guys would like to read it for $1. And it covers a really interesting story, and it talks about the clashes of society and also the big military industrial complex and how it affects everybody's journey. So it's a fiction and it's a lot of fun. I thought I would throw that out there for the audience who might be interested in this little novel.
Is it freezing up on you, Mariah?
Yeah, it is. Like, I'm trying to figure out why
Oh, shit.
I was.
That's okay. And I just wanted to say one thing. If you want to be free, you need to get rid of the word liberation, because liberation is you are working for the elite. You are not free. You're a paid slave that gets to pretend. You are not sovereign. But we'll continue. I can go without the slide, I suppose, here. So in 2027, this era that we're going to be entering, this is when death is going to occur. And I have a skull, in this slide, but you can't see it. So, and then something new emerges from that, right? And that's that sleeping phoenix, like you had mentioned, Matthew. And this deep, dark period is coming, and it's going to spread throughout the world, and everyone's going to be affected by it. Some countries are going to be more affected than others. So what we've done is, what we've become aware of between, Earth and the universe, it's never going to occur again. It does repeat, but it's different every time. So after this, this time, the quality of chemistry of DNA, which we've been designed and programmed into, where it comes into like just a normal, ordinary human being, these maternity hospitals are going to have these first little raves, which are similar to reptiles that have cold, thick skin and in complete lack of facial expressions. And they will have really no reactions. And you can already see that in some of the individuals where they don't really have expressions to the outside world. And so the features of these raves, they will more than likely lack any kind of self-reflection. They'll have like the absence of like questions, and they are desiring for knowledge. That's me. I'm already doing this. I noticed a lot of these traits in myself that I have transitioned into these states. Except for the lack of self-identification. I didn't know myself, and so I was learning how to try to figure that out. Also, they're going to be hypersensitive skin. I don't know about you all, but I have super hypersensitive skin. Like I can only use certain fabrics, and certain things when I touch them, it's just too much stimulation. Like I don't know if you guys have had a really long massage and you're just like get off of me, stop touching me.
Oh no,
That's happened to me.
but with
Yeah.
clothes, I've had rashes. Like we're like, where's this coming from? And anytime you put on like
Mhm.
any type of clothing, it makes it feel worse, right? Because it's
Mhm.
synthetic fabric, and the rash is probably coming from synthetic things.
I think that happened to me back in 2020. I think I had some shedding happen. Like I never got the jab or anything, but I remember there were a few incidents where I got these really weird rashes and they came out of nowhere. And like I wasn't sick. I didn't have like any other symptoms, but I remember I was like, a lot of people were getting jabbed and were freshly jabbed around that time. And it was like, And I went in, and of course they're like, "So you're gonna get your jab?" And I was like, "No," but I remember it happened right around that 2021 time, 2020, 2021, just like heart of the lockdown. And yeah, it was that sensitivity or whatever it was to that caused that.
Well, I also think that
Luckily,
maybe
super
check it
sensitive
out.
to other things.
2020, I came back. It was like El Nina type of weather, like just now again, sort of. So there was so much radiation in the air, and I moved back to Colorado. It was just not a cloud in the fucking sky for like 60,000 days. I was like, are we on Mars? Like the mountains themselves started just turning red because like the iron was just coming out. I'm like, oh, it's just over. The radiation was insane, and I had rashes all over. The doctors gave me steroids, and here it was like from antibiotics that I was allergic to that I had been given. And so they gave me
Mm.
steroids that made this yeast infection I had going on worse. Almost died. And it's COVID, right? And so nobody and I tried to go to the clinic, and they're the ones that gave me the steroids. The dentist is the one that gave. Oh. So it was a weird time if you did have weird shit going on, but I think there's something with radiation is my point. Radiation.
Well, I think that it actually has to do with your pH balance, because that's actually one thing that the raves are going to have, is they're going to have a different pH balance from humans. And they also, I don't know about y'all, but I have a resting bitch face and I have to practice smiling. Um, I literally have been told that people thought I was a bitch until they got to know me. And then they realized, like, it's just, I have this resting bitch face. And this is actually a part of like the raves where they have this undeveloped flat facial muscles where they lack any kind of facial expression. They also have like the inability to reproduce. So you'll see this is going to be happening with this particular race, because there's going to be 9 of them that are 9 different central races that are going to be born after 2027. They actually will also um, they'll have this special energy that circulates in the body graph, and they will actually also have poor eyesight because, you know, their eyes will be so much clearer that the sun and the lighting that, you know, we're being exposed to is going to be more difficult for them to see, and they're going to be more sensory, you know, just like a cat. A cat can't really see your face and do recognition, and this is actually happening with certain autistic people and other what's that one where people like see colors and smell sounds, or I don't remember what. Anyways, um, do you remember what that's called? It's like
Oh, that's
I
not what
can't think of what it is, but
is a-
there's actually this woman behind me that actually has this, where she sees colors and sound, um,
well,
and
mhm.
so they actually will also have this ability to share emotional awareness in the penta. So, like groups 3 to 5, right? Because the pentagram, they're going to be more intact with that instead of what? The number 6, which is human, right? 666 is the human DNA. So they're going to be more aligned with the pentagram. Um, and so, yeah, they're going to also like, so they're going to be born from manifesting generator people, because they're the ones that are going to be reproducing and trying to build and everything. Because if you're a manifesting generator in human design, this is going to be your jam, is this whole sleeping phoenix, because that's what that is. It's is, you know, among your acquaintances, your channels, when you think about other people that you care about, in, you know, any kind of people that you worry, uh, you know, if you try to get their interest, you're not going to be able to get it, because they're going to be so fucking busy recreating a new root race and a new way of life for the planet. They're not going to have time for y'all, you know, your issues and shit. So anyways, that's part. I don't know if Uriah, if you can get to your
I'm sorry,
slide, but you're ready
can't.
to go to your Pluto slide.
Yeah,
Hey, can you see it? Because I
I
can
can,
see it
and I
on
apologize
my
for.
end.
I think my Google specifically got like kind of hijacked, so I'm gonna just have to figure why it keeps doing that. I apologize. I used to be a
Yeah,
techie.
maybe a different browser. That's what, you know, I usually do, you know.
You can't really use a different one with StreamYard. Yeah, we'll figure. My apologies. What the fuck?
I use like Brave browser. I think you can also use Firefox as well.
Yeah,
Um
very well.
it's okay, don't worry about it. But Mariah has something about Pluto and the
You can look
9th
at the toilet.
planet. Do you have notes for that?
Oh, totally.
Do you
Well,
have your notes?
with Pluto, let's think about it being like the 9th planet, which is great. And I can't believe that they try to like kick it out of being a proper planet. And then I was
Yeah.
always like, save Pluto. No way, because it's important. Sorry, I need some water here. So nine is very important, and it is the 9th planet. But with Pluto, it's like Nova was talking about, it stamps that generation. It stamps all the generations because it takes a really long time, but not too long to go through a zodiac sign, about 20 years. And that's about a generation. And it's on the outskirt of the big dogs too, like Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn. And it's out there kind of as an anchor, right? It's like, it's that anchor. And what's really interesting, this part I think is really fucking rad, and I think it pertains to what we've been talking about, is that if y'all know what planets when they go retrograde, and some people roll their eyes, like when they go retrograde. So Pluto goes retrograde. What that means is it appears to go backwards from our perspective from Earth. And most planets do spend lesser time than Pluto, I guess, in retrograde. And Mercury does spend the most time in retrograde. My whole point is here that Pluto is in retrograde half of the time.
But it's in a zodiac, right?
6 months out of the 12 months, it will be retrograde. And so that's why it moves really slowly. But what that means, which is fantastic. So like I said, that Pluto stamps a generation. That means half of the generation is going to question the other half. One of the half is going to be the square, go with the crowd. And the other half is going to question that. What is it called? It's
right, because retrograding, when it goes retrograde, it's going back and looking at what it didn't cover, what the mistakes were, what the lessons it learned, right? Or I don't really believe in all those things, but it kind of scrubs over what it just did and goes, oh, I can omit this. It's that death and rebirth, right? Death, rebirth. Forward, backward, forward, backward.
Well, so
negative, positive, feminine, masculine, right?
And that it's beautiful. It's a beautiful balance. So which, I mean, it will cause conflict within it, but that way, not everybody just so easily mind controlled by these mind fucks, these mind fuckers. Excuse me, and proper terminology there. So if half of that generation is like, well, no, we're supposed to do it this way. This is how we've been programmed. This is how the way it is. And the other half are like, are you guys sure? Thank fucking God. Raise your hand. I'm sure all of you listening are the other half. And so you could go to your natal chart and look at if Pluto was retrograde. You could look at the moon cycles and everything. But I thought that was very, very interesting because that in itself, Pluto himself is creating duality because we are living in duality reality. We cannot survive without it. If we all got along, we'd all implode, which is fine. Or if we all like, fuck it, we'd all go outside and never come back. So this duality is that magnetism. But I thought that was really fucking rad. And so the next, it's a Pluto, of course, is like that Disney. Disney is evil, but Pluto, being that character, they knew something was up. And I just want to put him there. I'm not going to talk too much about the Disney aspect of it. But, okay, if we're talking about Pluto, let me look at my notes here. Right. Excuse me, sorry. So Pluto allows for personal collective evolution to occur because half the population is born under retrograde. And so you can look at that a little bit, but if we don't look at why this duality is even there and why he slows down for us to do that, it's making sense of like the madness of this underworld. And we have to start embracing our shadow side, which Pluto even takes the Virgin, the goddess down there, right? And we're going to get into that here a little bit. But Pluto also is part of like that mind control, but it's also control. It's control and desire. Those are two aspects of Pluto. So we were just in Capricorn with Pluto, and that's a whole lot of control, right? But that is a whole other beast. I'm not going to get into that because we're going to get into that.
Now we got Aquarius, right? Which is, controlling the collective consciousness and controlling everybody. That's why all these data centers are popping up everywhere. And you know what? All three of us actually have we are not in retrograde in Pluto. I just looked at it.
Oh, nice.
We all have moving forward Plutos. That's why we get along so well as the three.
So what's funny about I was thinking about this is so for the third planet in the solar system, retrograde works kind of funny with Pluto versus Mercury. Mercury being closest to the sun. Mercury is the one doing all the retrograding, but from Pluto's perspective, Earth is the one doing all the retrograding because we're the one zipping around the sun, and Pluto's just out here taking 25 years to go through a house. So really, Earth is causing its own chaos with Pluto. And then if it was Mercury, Mercury's causing all the chaos for Earth because of its location according to the sun, which is just kind of a funny way to look at it. And then it would be the same with any planets outward of the planet Earth, like Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus.
Yeah, and it was all
and all
unconscious
them
until
little- that's right.
1930.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
and there's
until
still
they
stuff out
rediscovered
there.
it, 'cause I'm
There's,
sure it was there before.
Oh, and there's like a planet X out there that's the size of Saturn orbiting around. They can't explain the gravitational waves.
Vulcan.
There's the entire, the entire, what do you call it? Not the asteroid belt, not the Orion belt. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Van Halen
I'm
belt?
sure somebody.
Van Halen belt?
Is it? Maybe that's it. I feel like Oort cloud. There we go. Then there's like a bunch of moons that are about around, like they're around half the size of Pluto, and they're out there. That's why Pluto got demoted from a planet, because they found like over a dozen other little moons out there, or not moons, but planetoids. And they were like, there's so many of them, and some of them are almost the size of Pluto. Are we going to have like 40 planets now because we found all these different little planetoids? So they had some kind of debate. I think it was like back in 2006 or something. And they're like, well, I guess we don't want that many planets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's to decide? As we're still discovering
Well, if you go into the if you go into the zodiac and you look at the behavior in each zodiac and house, you can see that Pluto has an effect. And that's what we're going to get into
Silence.
as we go through
It was
this.
silenced.
Yeah, and you know what? It shouldn't have been.
It shouldn't have been. I like how you put that. It should not have been.
It shan't. Shan't have
Shan't.
Okay. So what a message from Pluto himself. Nothing can be changed without changing the whole. So right now we have Pluto in Aquarius, and there's always a blind spot with Pluto because it kind of goes beyond the outer border of the solar system a little bit. It likes to go even like further into the darkness than being even into as dark as we can go. So it can really help you explore the deepest, darkest parts of your own soul and humanity's itself. It can get quite dark. That's why it's associated with Scorpio and death. And so with the blind spot with Pluto and Aquarius, it's that those people that are born under this particular natal chart, but also society, it's going to fucking change. So the mythical foundations of a whole new society is going to be articulated. So the last two Pluto placements, right, were in Capricorn the last 20 years. Think about your last 20 years and how that was for you. That was a concretizing, very concrete, very think about Capricorn. It's at the base of the mountain. It's the bones. It's the concrete beginning, like the building blocks. And before that, we had Sagittarius. And so that's more of the vision. And it's so funny. I was reading one of these books, and they were talking about Pluto being in Capricorn in the future. I believe it was this book, The Book of Pluto by Stephen Forrest. It's not that old, but he was talking about 2008 being in the future. And in 2008, that was the last time.
Oh, geez, that's when all the crisis happened with the financial stuff.
Yeah, that was actually the last time. So that was the beginning of another like cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of it. That was when it started being in Capricorn. That's when it started. Think about 2008. We had Obama, we had the housing crisis, and everybody, it started crumbling down. Pluto has a lot of bang. And so it's really funny when I was reading, Stephen Forrest is a great author about astrology, but he was talking about, no, in the age where we have Pluto and Capricorn, this is when we're finally going to look back and see what we did to the earth and start to mend and fix it. Well, here we are now. No, well, we haven't done that. We've let the overlords take over, but it's so interesting when people have, the future is always so more bright, as you should. You should want to think of and imagine a brighter future, but we need to really do that, and not just, oh, I wish and hope a better future, but what are we going to do about it? That's the whole point. Like, I
Well,
thought it
you
was
also have in your notes here that you have the 4 evolutionary levels, and that goes with the equinoxes and the solstices. So that's the 4 horsemen. And somebody brought up a good point. I think it actually might have been the Leo King, where he said that horses are not all that smart, because when they go to war, they're the first ones to get stabbed by a spear. And I was like, because they just charge and they don't
it's
stop.
the
And I was
worst
like,
part
man,
of
that's actually a
movies.
good point. I know. I
If
know. It's like they go first before man does, as the horse. So it's interesting that, these 4 worlds that you're saying of the 5th world of the Christos, because we're right now at the 555, where the 5th root race, the 5th subrace, and the 5th branch race are
that's the
going to
Easter.
create the 6th root race. Because the
Fiery
Christos was
4
actually
elements.
created in the 5th one. And so, which is really interesting, going back into the cyclical visitation, you were talking about the earth and these gods and these third dimensional, like every 3,600 years to 10,800 BC, 772 BC, and 36 BC. And so it's this story that, we have been holding on to, because Pluto, it doesn't always show everything, because it's literally just like, well, y'all didn't figure it out this last time, so you got to do it over again. And that's what really Pluto kind of does, is our consciousness is, did you learn anything yet? Oh, wait, you forgot? Oh, shit, well, then we're going to do it again.
Think about human design.
So,
Human design, right? To me, that's projector. I'm a projector, so he's like circling on the outside, like, all right, let me know if you need my help.
yeah.
And I feel that as a projector, if you and we're talking human design, that's a whole other
Right.
it's all math. These are ways of like looking at all this phenomenon that's going on, and it combines not only astrology but also your chakra system, and it really combines the two, because what's going on upstairs is going on downstairs, as above so below. I wish I had all my slides going on, but we'll figure that shit.
Well, I also have something. I have something that to add, that I added to this Pluto, was the Hades moon, and that has to do with Pluto and the moon. And when there is war, okay, so we're talking about Capricorn to Cancer again, going back to that. We're talking about 167 years of decline and death, and not quite rebirthing yet. We're gonna roll over and kill everything off that no longer serves us. And Pluto and the moon are not the only planets involved in war, but these aspects between them, they appear all the time. Their frequencies are very significant in these dates, with charts, especially charts of people and their personalities, where war is clearly playing Hades moon themes. Okay, and Hades, as you know, is Pluto. And so these are just many, many multiple layers of how this Hades moon is, for especially like me, where I have a Capricorn moon opposing Saturn in Cancer. And that is where, death and rebirth start. Okay, death is Capricorn, rebirth is Cancer. So this unresolved rage is something I had, in my lineage, and in this frustration of like being on this planet. So I can completely relate to this Hades moon with Capricorn. And this is where the collective karma of war and repression starts to, uh, see itself, and it starts to lie to itself. And this, being individualistically raged, maybe some of us are starting to feel it. And, this resentment turns into cancers. right? I mean, why do we think it's called cancer? Cancer's called cancer for a reason, because of all the resentment and that rage from Pluto, like in these houses. So, but these are also could be fueled by Mars, which is ruled by Aries. And but this inherent Hades moon, whenever any kind of emotional eruption, which we have been going through for thousands of years now, but now that is going to change with this new root race that's coming in. And we lost Mariah. That's okay. So whatever passionate conflict is that is going to come during this time between yourself, any kind of individual on a global scale, there's going to be this raw energy stemming from the base of your trunk of your tree. And that is what the root race really means, is that trunk of the tree that is really rooted into the ground and that has this primal instinct that is connected to the mycelium network and to the web of everything. And this is why it's considered to be that power of the tree of life. And this is where that primal rage of Pluto is focused through this instinctual force of the moon. And this is when energy becomes blocked. You can, start to unconscious or actually consciously become violent. And you're starting to see that around the planet, where there's more violence, not just war. You're actually, it's becoming overwhelming. There's so much going on at once. It's like a pressure cooker. If you don't, adjust the little steam dial, it's going to freaking become a bomb. And this is what happens with this Hades moon, is that these emotional needs behind this aggression and these urges, we're suppressing. We've been suppressing because we're supposed to be what, right? The good Samaritan and be loving and kind, right? Matthew, isn't that what the spiritual community has been telling us all to do? Just love and light, man. That's just all peace and love.
Duality. I mean, I think it's it's the fantasy that's sold with it for sure. And there's not much of the face the inner conflict that causes the duality and pain in the first place. I mean, it's funny. It reminds me of a comic that I saw, or it was a meme, and on one side it's like what you think spirituality is, and it's like the Zen master with all their chakras open, and they're just sitting there meditating, and it's all rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. And then it was like actual spiritual awakening, and it was just like a person crying in the corner, like facing my trauma.
Yeah,
it's really what it is. I mean,
is avoiding it, right? The guru is 100% avoiding. He's not involved in daily crap that the rest of us are. He's over there just like, oh motherfucker, and so they literally are dissolving themselves for any kind of responsibility, but to the self. That's it. So that's not really a spiritual awakening. That's just them avoiding,
yeah, that's their
and
path,
they could, I mean, I suppose they could be, their consciousness could be creating peace and harmony, but it's not really working right now because of this cycle. You can do as much as you want, but there's always these cycles, and humanity hasn't quite gotten around to the point where they have figured out, like, oh, I can choose which way I go on this cycle, and so right now, with this, these unacceptable urges that we've had and these energies that have been unlived are in the shadows, and they're being lived out right now. And you can see it with the Henry, all the Epstein files, the policies, the religions, all of it, medical, it's all there. And it's enacting itself out individually since we suppressed it. And so this century, Pluto is when it changes these signs, it foreshadows and it accompanies war breaking out. And Cancer, like for example, World War One, Leo, World War II, Virgo, the Suez Crisis, and so on. And we're going to get into that more next week, because we are at the hour and a half. We're going to go into the war of what happens between the decline of Earth, and also the atrocities that happen that are not just war. There's also going to be floods, fire, all this other kinds of brimstone action happening. And, you know, because we have been suppressing it. And this is the cycle, is for the earth has to let it go somehow. And since maybe you as a human being weren't able to do that because you were shamed and told you couldn't, the earth is going to do it for you. And it's going to take a lot of us off of the planet, which is fine because we're not dead, we're not dying. It's not a big deal. Like, it's just another aspect. We're energy, right, Matthew?
No big deal. No, just die. No
No
problem.
big
Easy
deal.
peasy.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, because there's no death. It's fake. It's an illusion. And that's, if we realize that and just had a good time, then these cycles would break. We wouldn't be ruled by them anymore if we just expressed ourselves and dealt with it right away. But since we're
much easier said than done in this cycle, that's for sure.
Well, these new kids that are going to be born between 2027 are going to have that. They're going to have emotional tonal frequency of Lemuria that was never anchored. And so it's going to be kind of like Vulcan.
Yeah, that'll be really curious to see, you know, and I guess in like the next 20 to 30 years, we'll actually see the fruit from that tree.
Yeah.
And I think,
So
you know, another important thing to think about and acknowledge is that for those people to be born, there was a certain frequency that had to be met on the planet. And there was a lot of hard work that was put into and not really recognized because of the sludge and nastiness of the world. But there had to be a certain that level for those souls to even incarnate here. So, you know, props to the parents that are bringing those kids in, because they might not have some crazy hero's journey, but they're providing a space for those souls to be a kid and grow up and fight the good fight, or fight the fight, whatever it is.
Well, so, these children are going to be different than you and I, because they're going to go through the hardest, most difficult challenges of having to survive than we ever have known. We're just going to get the beginning edges of it. And so it's our responsibility, or maybe they will come in with the knowledge, or it's our responsibility to teach them and give them these skills. So that way we can all get the fuck off of this planet for once and for all and go somewhere else and have some fun. Because this stuff is pretty interesting. Anyways. Well, thank you, everybody. Any last words, Matthew, before we sign off?
Well, this was a good one, and I guess since we had a little glitch with the slides there, I guess we will be continuing next week with the same thing, and we can get into even more. I mean, I've got a big list of things here to talk about as well, you know, that correlate with this same pattern and Pluto, and having all kinds of fun going back even, you know, to Sumerian times. And so we can examine this pattern even more next week, and it's going to be pretty, or I guess it'll be next week. Next week I will be gone.
Yeah, because you're not going to be here.
I will not be here due to the release of Spirit Lines, which comes out again in a week. So I'll drop that code for anybody who wants to get into it. And then what will be next week on the continuation. I guess Lee wants to say something.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. We're going to continue next week with the Sleeping Phoenix. to help you get prepared for what is coming, and have fun with it. If anything, just laugh your way through it, because it's just an experience. You don't have to, and start learning how to fast. Fasting will help you substantially. It'll make you feel better. My fast that I did break it, and I feel way better. My whole system's running better, like when I eat food. And I'm going to continue to do like 3 or 4 days a week where I fast, and eat like 3 or 4 days a week instead. And I'm really glad I did it because I feel more empty. And that is the best feeling to have, because what's coming, you don't want to be full. You want to be as empty as possible to like retain anything that's coming in for your soul journey. So check in with us next week at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. My name is Nova. I'm with Poppy's Field Project. I am your host, and I'm with Matthew, the co-host, and Mariah. She was here just a second ago, but we will get back together with you next week, and we're going to go over the wars that happened the last time that Pluto and the famines and everything that did happen, so that way you can be prepared, because this is a cycle that happens each year or each cycle. Much love to everyone, and remember, just enjoy the ride and love yourself and love each other. We are not your enemies. The consciousness is right now, and just say no. No consciousness. And forgive yourself for not always having the knowledge to do that, or the bravery or the curiosity or whatever, the courage. Much love to everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Cheers, guys. Good night.